have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV.
Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hello and welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor as always, and I'm very excited for a couple of reasons this week. This is obviously TV Guidance Counselor, as I mentioned before, and before I get to my guest this week, who is comedian Andy Kindler, I have a big announcement for everybody. Well, I think it's a big announcement. We will be doing a live, the first ever official live TV Guidance Counselor podcast during New York Super Week, which is part of Comic-Con down in New York on Sunday, October 5th at 7 p.m. We'll be having a live TV Guidance Counselor at the Brooklyn Brewery, so definitely like us on Facebook if you don't already, or continue to go to the website. I'll have all the details up on there. Not quite ready to announce the guest yet, but you guys will be very pleased with who it is. I'm very, very excited. So definitely keep an eye on the social media because I will be announcing it there. Now, on to this week's episode. My guest is comedian Andy Kindler, who you've seen in a ton of things, and you've definitely heard on stuff. He does a great voice on Bob's Burgers, one of my favorite current shows. I do watch current TV occasionally. He also does the State of Comedy at the Montreal Comedy Festival every year. He's very funny. I really enjoyed our conversation, so please enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Andy Kindler.
So what's on TV? So what's on TV?
Mr. Andy Kindler, hello.
Thank you very much. I realized I needed a mint, so
That's fine.
it's part of the. Is this part of the showing behind the scenes of the scenes?
Yeah, because did you feel that your breath was so egregious it would come through on the audio?
It's lobster. I just had lobster
Yeah,
roll. We're here
yeah.
in Boston. I recommend to the locals try the lobster roll.
Yeah, a lot of local Bostonians are unfamiliar with lobsters.
That's what I find.
Yeah.
I don't think they know that there's you know what? It's less expensive. And is this sarcasm I'm doing now?
I don't know. Is it lobster-based sarcasm?
Yeah, it's just, but it's so weak, the sarcasm, that I just, maybe it's more like an observation.
The sarcasm.
I just realized what the name of the show was, what it meant.
Oh, did you
TV
really?
Guidance Counselor.
Yeah.
Finally.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
get puns.
No, I'm not a big pun person myself either, so it's odd that I went with that for the title
I like
of
it.
the show. Oh, well,
I'm
thank
all
you.
for it.
Thank you. Andy Kindler, all for the name of the show. That is what I am changing the name to the show of. Yes.
Well, for the name of the show?
Yeah, no, Andy Kindler's all for the name of the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going now. It's an official endorsement and you can't take it back. We have
No, I can't, because it's on, not camera so much as on digital.
Yes, a digital recorder. I use a Zoom, and there's a few people who didn't know what a Zoom was, and they thought this was a taser.
Oh, well,
It looks a little like a
it does
taser,
look like
I
a
guess.
taser. But also, just that speaks to the level of paranoia of something.
They go, are you going to tase me?
Yeah,
Was this
that's
all
terrible, yeah.
some sort of trap to tase me? So you picked, I give you a selection of TV guides, and you picked this one from 1975. It's the week of December 27th, so Christmas has already happened. It's sort of New Year's Eve week.
Yes.
And what drew you to this particular issue?
Yeah, well, I don't want to mislead people first of all, I was running late, so the first half hour of our meeting, I was eating a lobster roll. So
Right.
I would say that had I had more time, I would have maybe gone deeper into each issue, but I didn't. So, but I got attracted to Robert Blake's on the cover.
Yes, a very happy Robert Blake.
Robert, yeah, this is
Yes.
before all the negative things. He's feeding is it a cockatoo?
It's a cockatoo.
Yeah, he's feeding it on his head, and he has a look on his face like
Smug satisfaction?
Well, it's smoke satisfaction, but I also think he's like laughing a little bit at the crazy bird. What's that crazy bird doing up there?
Yeah, it looks like a really weird Bond villain. Like, instead of a cat on his lap, he has a bird on his head.
Yeah.
He's like, my bird friend.
And it says Robert Blake and Fred Beretta's Cookie Cockatoo, page 6.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's that. And I also like the fact that it's like not a holiday issue, but it's in that time of the year.
Yes, so you're going to get a lot of reruns and you're going to get a lot of special programming. That
Right.
week. Yeah,
that
which is-
siren has nothing to do with the. We're not.
It's the bonus round. Yeah. So let's jump right in on Saturday
Sure.
night, 8 o'clock. What'd you go with?
I went with Emergency. And I actually remember that. I'm very much older than this issue is.
Okay.
And I would have gone with, you said my childhood, so I would have gone
Right.
from TV guides in the 30s. Good night, everybody.
1930s, pre-TV.
Yeah, you're explaining the joke for people. Andy means the 1930s.
Yes.
So
It was all predictive television listings. It was like sci-fi television.
Yeah, exactly.
Space Travel Hour.
Space Travel Hour, the first game show.
So you went a little later than your youth at this.
Yeah, this is not my youth, but I do remember the show Emergency, and of course it's very confusing. Are all of yours DV guides from Denver?
Not all of them. Just this batch is from Denver, so they're on Central Time.
Right, and that looks odd to me.
Yes, Central's very weird because you grew up in New York, right?
I grew up in New York, and I heard it as a kid. Such and such. This time they used to talk about Mountain Time more.
Central and Mountain.
They don't
You
plug
never
Mountain
hear
Time.
about
No,
Mountain
whatever
Time.
happened to Mountain Time?
I think Mountain Time is in a warehouse with acid rain. The two of those things.
Was Acid Rain real?
I thought it was real. They
Oh, okay.
talked about it a lot. It came
Well,
up
the
very
Ozone was
frequently.
definitely there was a whole,
Ozone, acid rain, Mountain Time. They're all in some sort of mothballed. They're
Yes.
all in the Smithsonian.
They were in the time capsule, like they always say. So 7 o'clock. I know the show. What this would be, and it's probably a emergency room, hospital show.
It was a drama that followed. What are they? ETMs? Not ETMs. EMTs.
Right.
ETMs sound like some sort of weird.
Now,
science
do you
fiction
know?
thing.
Are you like have encyclopedic knowledge of TV?
I do a bit. So this is a little bit before my sweet spot, but I have a pretty encyclopedic knowledge of television that I never tried to learn. It was just sort of absorbed into my skull by an unhappy childhood and watching hours and hours and not sleeping. I slept about 2 hours a night for about 20 years.
Wow.
And just watched TV all night.
Have you stopped? Did you figure out a way to?
Yeah, I got a lot less anxious all the time, and I started sleeping in my sort of mid-20s. So I mostly sleep through the whole night now. There'll be like 1 or 2 nights a month that I'll have horrible insomnia. But it was a great excuse to get a good television education.
And your parents didn't stop you from watching TV?
Oh God, no! They did not pay a single attention to anything I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I had a
So-
TV in my room. I stole cable from my neighbor.
Yeah, you did all
Yeah,
the-
I built my own black boxes.
Wow. Now, what's your wheelhouse in terms of like you really can't be beat?
Pretty much horror movies, horror television, and then just from like 84 to about 92.
Everything.
Solid, yeah,
Yeah.
that's solid. A lot before, and then after the year 2000, I stopped paying attention.
As everyone did
Yeah.
who watches TV.
Yeah, I had planned for Y2K, and then when it didn't happen, I was like, well, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, no. I already have ensured that I'm going to survive. So this
So,
show, I
yes.
think, was probably bad.
It wasn't great. It was an hour-long drama about paramedics. So in this particular episode, paramedics aid a parachutist snagged on a radio tower, something we've seen too many
Yes,
times. An auto accident victim who is in deep shock, and a man whose adjustment to a heart transplant is made more difficult by his wife's nagging. Even better, Wolfman Jack has a cameo role.
Now, did you add even better?
I added even better. I editorialized.
I like that. I don't know where feminism was in the 70s, but to be able to say the guy's condition was worsened by his wife's constant nagging.
Yeah, and I imagine heart transplants in 1975 were a pretty new technology.
Right.
So they're like, heart transplants are going to go great if we can just keep these women from nagging. When will science solve that problem?
They don't have a cure for that yet.
No, Wolfman Jack sort of fascinates me that he
Yes.
was such a
Yes.
phenomenon.
Well, he was a phenomenon, and did you see American Graffiti?
Yes, absolutely.
So that was like my first, not my first, no, I don't know why, I didn't grow up with him. I don't know if he was more on the West Coast.
I think he was, because he would be on like Midnight Special, which always seemed more West Coasty to me.
Yeah.
But he would show up in New York-based shows a lot, weirdly. As
Oh,
guest
as a
star.
character actor?
Yeah,
or-
yeah. Because he was such I'm a character.
And then he got there's a little controversy because he later on was like, hey kids, you got to sign up for the draft.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I remember
he was
that.
the establishment at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Wolfman Jack. Not a handsome guy. Not a
No.
very pleasant voice either for a radio person.
Well, I think many of the fans who are no longer alive would really
Who
take
died in
issue
the
with
early
that.
60s.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't want to say that back in 1963.
No, you would be beaten in the street for even questioning Wolfman Jack's credentials.
I don't even know much about his actual show.
I don't either. I don't think I've ever heard his actual radio broadcast.
But in American Graffiti, he's great.
He is great in that, and he's I think he's an American Hot Wax too. He really tried to make being in American Graffiti into a career unto itself.
Wasn't Jay Leno also an American Hot Wax?
Yes, he was.
One of his best acting roles.
Yes, so was Lorraine Newman was in that.
You know what his best acting role was?
The movie with Pat Morita.
No, pretending as if he hadn't screwed a lot of people over.
Yes, he's very good at that. He's very good at
I
that.
didn't know what's going on there, and
had nothing to do with
Conan didn't get the numbers there, and it's business, show business.
I'm just as much a victim here as everyone else.
That's right, but
Yes, and then, well, he did have to eat a lot of Doritos.
Yes.
To be fair, in his defense.
Well, I think he claimed that was for charity.
Eating Doritos for charity?
Well, no, the sale of it, he would whatever they say.
The salary, I donated it to charity?
And that's
I killed those people, but the money I made went to charity.
Well, that is legitimate.
Yeah, I think so, especially if it's the families of the people you murdered. So I probably would have went with the Jeffersons at this time. There's not a lot of options here because it's sort of pre-cable. We're in 75, you got 4 channels. And I am very pleased to see that you passed up Hee Haw.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Hee Haw is, I think, in a way, would be hacky to make fun of.
It's too easy.
It's too easy, and also Hee Haw did have like good musicians on.
It did. This episode has Ernie Ford.
Right. So
Yeah.
and then that, but and then of course I'm not defending the level of comedy.
It's terrible.
In Hee Haw.
It's really bad.
And but because of Minnie Pearl, didn't
Yeah,
it? And
Minnie
she had
Pearl.
like she had the price of her clothing on the clothing.
Yes, they would be the tags on her hat and that sort of thing. Someone on a previous episode called it Southern Face.
What does that mean?
So it was like just cartoonishly offensive depictions of Southern people. That's somehow not offensive to Southern people, but somehow encouraging.
Well, yeah, because I think the thing that you're saying is, I don't think they thought it was negative.
No.
And also, just variety shows in general have played out.
Lowest common denominator?
Well, I don't know so much lowest common denominator. There's just so many of them. When I was growing up, there were all these
Huge.
Sonny and Cher show and Ed
Donnie and
Sullivan.
Marie.
Yeah, Donnie and then Donnie Marie. They had a variety show then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So did the Brady Kids in the early 70s.
Oh, okay.
My favorite terrible variety show was produced by Sid and Marty Krofft, and it was called Pink Lady and Jeff.
With Jeff Altman.
Jeff Altman.
Now I'm going to walk over here so
Yeah, no
people.
problem.
I'm going to get a drink.
Absolutely.
Do you want a drink?
I'm good at the moment, thank you. Though.
I probably should
They
have.
got Fiji water. That's
they-
swanky.
I think I'll have a Coke.
Nice.
Because I've heard my doctor says I need to get more Coca-Cola in my diet.
Not Pepsi, definitely.
No,
Coke.
and less water.
Yes.
Less water, more Coca-Cola.
Well, Coke is mostly water.
Now wait a second. I'm not one of these people though. I think it was Eddie Brill on Facebook who was like saying, "What happens when you drink one Coke?"
Yes, it's poison.
I don't believe that for one
Yeah.
bit. You know what I think about it? I think it's delicious.
Delicious sugar water. I'm a huge soda fan. I'm obsessed. I've never had alcohol in my life, so I'm kind of obsessed with cane sugar sodas.
I love them.
Love them.
And you're thin as you're thin.
I don't know. I think that's just because I worry the weight off. That's my new worry the weight off. It's much
It's
harder.
that
than
easy.
It's just that easy. I used to order Mexican Coca-Cola every year before you could readily get it in the U.S. because it was still made with cane sugar because life is cheap down there. And I used to order a case of it every year. I ordered one time and they used an old invoice address and they shipped it to my parents' old address that they didn't live at anymore. And I panicked because I'm like, that's like a $50 case of glass bottles. I got to get it. So I did a reverse lookup. I called the people that lived there and I was like, this is Ken Reed. You probably got a package for me. Don't worry about it. And I literally said, it's just Mexican Coke. And they hung up on me and I was like, oh
my God.
I realized my error here.
Did you ever get it back?
I did. I called them back, and I'm like, "It's Coca-Cola. You can open. It's fine." And I showed up, and they were just like, "Put it on the porch," and we're like, "Get out of here!" Like they just.
I thought they would have had consumed it.
I would have thought so as well, because that's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I also used to order the Dublin Dr. Pepper, which you can no longer get.
What is that?
It was original formula Dr. Pepper from Dublin, Texas, with cane sugar. Much, much better.
Now, do you think do you buy into the fruit
High
fructose?
fructose corn syrup
It's
stuff?
not as good for you?
No, it definitely isn't. There's some weirdness on that. Have you ever read how that stuff's made? It's very not right.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
I mean, I think a lot of people say the medical establishment, well, it does the same thing, but sometimes
Sugar and
they
sugar.
don't do the same thing.
No. There's
Yeah.
definitely some studies that basically say it tricks your body into just going like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Well, they say true about diet stuff, too.
Yeah.
It has the same reaction as regular
That's
soda.
why I'm like, if you're going to have soda, just have a soda. Like, don't have some weird thing that's not...
I do drink some stevia-based, like, that I do like Sobe Zero.
Because that's at least natural. I think that the weird aftertaste gets to me, though.
Yes, it's true.
Have you ever got an actual stevia plant?
No.
I bought a stevia plant, which you can get really cheap.
Oh, it's wrong. It's not stevia.
It might be stevia. I don't know.
No, I think I'm wrong.
are
Often
you
wrong. I would say penne. I said penne pasta for 10 years.
Penne?
Until they...
Penne sounds like a fine painter.
Yeah,
I love Peña's work.
Oh, Peña's good.
The Stevias in Spring is one of my favorite paintings. But I got an actual stevia plant and I steeped the leaves and made like a syrup. This is how insane that I am, because it doesn't have the that chemical-y taste when you do it that way, and it was awesome. I made like a simple syrup out of it.
Oh, so when they extract it, is when you
to make it look like sugar, they have to bind it to something sugar-like, so it does all, you know, so you can do, because it's actually sweeter than sugar, and so you can replace it 1-to-1 in cooking and stuff, whatever. So you can make like a tea out of it, and then basically make like a.
Oh, I think I might. But you see, I don't know if I do that because I want it in various items.
Yeah, you could put it in various.
I don't have enough time. I'm very busy these days.
It's a crazy person's endeavor to make a stevia simple syrup, but
well worth it.
Yeah, well worth.
It's like
the time.
sun tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Who doesn't love sun tea? What happens?
They don't teach kids sun tea anymore because kids would get botulism from it.
Why?
Because you're leaving tea like stagnant water in the sun for 3 days.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. I think that's.
Oh.
I remember there was an episode of Pee-wee's Playhouse where the activity for the day was sun tea, and a bunch of kids did it and got botulism, so they cut that out of rebroadcasts of the show.
Oh, you mean they actually got botulism?
They actually got botulism
from
making sun tea, which makes me concerned about this cold brew coffee phenomenon.
Why is that?
Because how do they manage to not have the same issue?
Because it's done in a refrigerator.
Ah, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
done.
understand.
I'm a coffee fanatic.
I love cold brew
but I'm a light. Oh, you like it?
I really
like it. Yeah,
like
I'm
it.
a light roast fan too.
Oh, it's too strong for you? I like that it's low acidity. The cold brew.
Oh no, I like cold brewed. But you drink it mostly as an iced coffee?
Yes.
Yeah. But I like regular brewed coffee, and I'm anti the whole Starbucks thing.
I'm not a big
roast.
fan. We gotta go to Starbucks.
Well, the thing I'll say about Starbucks when I used to, well, I'm still on the road, but if you want a latte or a thing, it's very consistent.
Yeah.
And also he's very good to his employees.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure
now
it's
you feel
fine.
bad. Now
I
you
do
feel bad.
terrible.
No, but he started that whole over roasting coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I would rather go to like a mom and pop if there is one around, but I imagine in some places in America that's the best coffee you're gonna get in that area.
Although you don't know, because now that I'm finding with all these roasters, you start to find someone who roasts.
Yes.
Well, so.
Yeah. Just go by your nose. Follow your nose, as Toucan Sam said. The Fruit Loops
From where?
Fruit
Oh,
Loops.
that's a great product.
It always knows. Great product. I endorse Fruit Loops.
We were watching the other night on the TV, me and my wife, and it was like one of these things. I was like, "So, hi." It was like, "How are you?" They didn't say hi, but like it was one of these like,
Hi, Andy.
Hi, on the local news. No, even on the evening news, they talk to you like you're 7 years old. You know? They always have a tagline at the end, and that's whatever the line, some kind of a pun. So the whole thing was how you can save money at the supermarket. And she's in the supermarket. This was NBC. She's in the supermarket, and she says, "I use one of these like cards, discount cards."
Yeah.
She, you say 50. She's like shocked. She's the only person in the world who doesn't know.
Never heard about that? Well, you may or may not know that I worked in television news for a while, and the majority of those stories are produced by the companies. They're PR pieces that they make look like news pieces, and they send them to the news stations for free. So that was probably produced by the supermarket council, whatever. And so those really dumb stories, like, doesn't everybody know about this? It's basically ad time.
Well, it's actually worse than that, because this was Rahima Ellis, who's from the national news.
Yes.
And just,
I always love, too, where they'll be like, there's a war in Gaza right now, and our final story, some baby ducks. I'm like, this is very strange.
And then the cliche for years was, at 11, learn how your faucet can kill you.
Yeah,
that kind of
something can kill you. I collect, one of my other mental issues is I collect old television broadcasts. So I get beta tapes and VHS tapes from flea markets and eBay, and then I convert them to DVD, and I like the old commercials and the whole broadcast.
Right.
But my favorite thing are those news stingers, like at 11. And so for years what I wanted to do is just do a super edit of like hundreds of them, because just when you watch them in succession, they're insane. Like it'll be like, skier killed by a lion at 11. And then the next thing is like, stevia is poison at 11. And it's just, when you watch them
That's
all
gotta
like that,
be great.
It's very fun. I haven't had the time to do that because I've been making stevia liquid.
Yeah, well, also your podcasting, and your other obligation, your stand-up comedy.
That's true.
We're very busy.
We're very busy people.
Yeah.
We're actually running while we're doing this podcast, which is just we're just in very good shape. So yeah, hee-haw, terrible. I would have gone with the Jeffersons at this time, although not my favorite show. I do enjoy the Jeffersons.
I don't. For some reason, I never. Well, I was big on the Family fan.
Yeah.
So I think I loved Sherman. I didn't pick that one because I figured I would pick something I wouldn't want to watch was Emergency, but I would watch the Jeffersons too. But I thought Sherman Helmsley was hilarious.
He's always funny. I used to
Yeah.
watch Amen in the 80s, which was not a good show, but I always enjoyed his seething rage.
And he was great on All in the Family.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, he was. He was much better in All in the Family than I think in the Jeffersons.
Yeah, the Jeffersons just to me, except for the theme song, which is incredible.
Classic. So at 7:30, you don't need to pick anything because you're watching an hour-long show, and there's literally only one show on at 7:30.
Which is what?
Which is called Doc, which is a show I'm unfamiliar with, but the description is Doc, a frustrated cellist, is there any other kind, has mixed feelings when he's asked to play in a string quartet. He'd love to try, but he's afraid he's lost touch. Bernard Hughes plays Doc, who's an actor that I love. You actually hear him at the beginning of the podcast. Never heard of this show.
Well, what does he do at the beginning of the podcast?
I have a quote from the film The Lost Boys where he says, "You have a TV. Don't need a TV if you have a TV guide."
Oh, okay.
Yes, Bernard Hughes. So 8 o'clock. What are you going with?
Well, this is a classic. This is Mary Tyler Moore, which I can still. When I moved to LA in 1978, and I was after college, and what am I reading? I don't know what I'm reading. It sounds like I'm reading from a thing. I had watched Mary Tyler Moore when it came out.
Yeah.
And I watched, and it was like the type of thing that my family would watch all together because
Do you have any siblings, or are you?
Yeah, my brother. I have brother and sister, so I actually really actively remember watching that as a family. And then, but when I came out in the late '80s, I mean the late '70s, and I would see Mary Tyler Moore on reruns. I was very depressed at that time in my life because I went to college and I had to find college. I did theater, and then after that, I was like, oh, I have to have a, because I didn't want
to
go
make
to
money.
I didn't want to go to law school. I didn't want to do anything like that. I knew
Yeah.
I wanted to be some kind of performer, so I had a terrible day job. So that would always I would watch Mary Tyler Moore in the afternoon.
To make you feel better? It was
Make
like
me
an
feel better.
alleviate, right?
I just like it. Well, I grew up with shows that I still would defend. I Leave It to Beaver. I thought it was for what it was.
It's not a bad show.
It's not a bad show. So,
Yeah.
but then there were shows that I could watch as I was a kid that I couldn't sound like Donna Reed. Is very
Yeah,
boring.
It's a bit saccharine.
Or even Your Father Knows Best is very boring.
Yeah. The stakes are so low, and Leave It to Beaver was a pretty well-written show. And
Yes.
there's some good sort of the misunderstanding sitcom, which
Yes.
is Three's Company's probably the worst example, and maybe Curb Your Enthusiasm or Car 54 Are You are the best examples.
I would argue that sometimes Curb Your Enthusiasm
Is the worst example.
Well, the contrivance, that's actually what bothers me in that show, where the contrivance
How
is.
convenient the
Yeah.
little tie-up is at the end.
Right, the homeless guy from the first scene, and
Yeah.
his car
Yeah.
ends up on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to do that sort of comedy, but Leave It to Beaver would get complicated sometimes in some of those episodes.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
And you would feel like nervous for the Beav.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I have a problem with a lot of those 50s shows is that, speaking of the sort of subtle conspiratorial news stories, those shows did that. Leave It to Beaver specifically was paid by the department stores in America to introduce the concept of layaway to America. And to introduce things like credit. So there's an episode where Beaver really wants this bike. Let's teach you about layaway, this new concept.
I did not pick that up as a youngster.
Yeah, there's a lot of those kind of things in those
That's
shows,
kinda cool.
which was is a little bit disturbing to me when I rewatched them.
Well, because early on, so much of TV was sponsored too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you'd have less
Directly.
ads. Yeah, you would say this whole half hour is brought to you by this soap.
That's fantastic.
Which is better and worse, I think, but a little less subtle, which is kind of good. In a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
no question. It still holds up as a brilliant show. In
Mary
every
Tyler
way.
Moore was great. It was a really smart show, and I think people now don't realize how innovative it was to have a strong female character who's single and approaching middle-aged in the 70s. And I don't think she tried a few sitcoms after that and had a really weird show in the late 70s that was almost like the Larry Sanders Show, where it was she was a fictional version of herself that had her own variety show, and the first half of the show was the behind the scenes, and the second half of the show was the actual variety show.
Oh man, what was it called?
It's called the Mary Tyler Moore Hour.
Oh, okay.
And it only lasted about 8 episodes, and some of it's very funny, and some of it's just weird. Michael Keaton was on it. It was his first role when he was still doing stand-up.
Oh man,
Probably
yeah.
1978. He plays a page at the television station or a doorman or something like that. It's a very weird show. But I love Mary Tyler Moore. All the MTM production stuff was great.
Well, that's also because they're a classic for believing in what they were making,
Right.
and not taking it off the air.
Right.
I think Mary Tyler, but I think it's a book just written about Mary Tyler Moore, which
think
is
there
very,
is, yeah.
and about how throughout the week, at first, no one was buying like I think Lou Grant or no one was buying Rhoda at first.
Yes.
And then they have the daughter of Phyllis, kind of comes in and says something, and it's like all of a sudden within that first few days they thought they had a bomb on their
Right,
hands
we're
and then
sunk.
just turned around.
Yeah, and shows now don't get the chance to do that. Sometimes shows get canceled before they even air because the internet buzz is bad.
Yeah.
Where you'd have Cheers floundered in the bottom 100 for the first season and a half. And they kept it going, and it became one of the best sitcoms of all time.
Yeah.
You would never have that.
You should never take off a show that's good.
I think it's hard for people to tell what's good now. I
Right.
think that people don't want to stick their neck out anymore. I think people... You also seem to... And you know, I'm so low on the ladder of the business, so I'm sort of just guessing here. But I feel like up until the 80s, you had executives that also had an interest and true love of television
Yeah.
or movies, or would actually sit and watch them and had an opinion on something, and they would say, I like this show, so we're going to stick with it. And not just, we lost money, bye.
Well, that's also because I think Grant Tinker was one. I think Brandon Tartikoff. You see these names of people, but that's also because the original people who were in TV were actually TV people who had a love, like you're saying, had love. And now it's like I'm tweeting today about Comcast, please pull the HDMI cable on this MSNBC because I wake up, it's like a right wing Joe Scarborough, and I think the nature of that is there's such huge companies running these networks that by the time it gets from the top down to the person, it's like who knows who's even
It's like I used to be the CEO of Seagram's and now I run sitcoms on NBC. It's like it just doesn't make sense. It's money, people. It's very strange to me. But it was a different time then.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you went at 8:30 with Bob Newhart.
Yeah, Bob Newhart. And that is another show that I remember in the 80s, again, when I was depressed, just would watch every single day, every single episode. I loved that show. I couldn't say I loved him more than Mary Tyler Moore. I loved them both equally. But he was hilarious to me. And I never even listened to his albums.
When did you check out his albums?
I would say I still have not checked.
You still haven't even listened.
Well, I'm getting a lot more honest as I get older about what I haven't and haven't seen. I haven't seen French movies.
Yeah,
and I haven't seen. It took me like many years to see Caddyshack.
See, here's the thing. I don't really like Caddyshack.
I don't think it's that great.
It's not really that great. It really isn't. People get mad at me because I say I like Caddyshack 2 better.
Oh, that might be bad.
It's
to say
bad.
that.
But I think, I'm like, if Caddyshack 2 was called The Golf Movie, I think people would like it. If it wasn't the sequel.
It was a sequel, yeah.
Yeah, Meatballs 2, better than Meatballs. It has an alien in it.
Oh.
Yeah, called Meathead.
Is Bill Murray in that one too?
No.
Oh.
John Larroquette is.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking. But I Caddyshack I feel like does not hold up. But that's sort of a holy cow movie.
Well, also it's built up too much.
Yeah, I agree.
By everybody. You haven't seen it?
What's wrong with you?
And Bill Murray is funny in it.
He is. Bill Murray's definitely funny.
He's funny in everything.
I have an aversion to any movie that can be turned into a theme restaurant. Of which Caddyshack has a restaurant. In Myrtle Beach, there is a Caddyshack restaurant run by the Murray brother, who is a chef, because all families with more than 5 people need to have one member who's a chef. Murray's, Wahlberg's.
What's his name?
I can't think of his name. It's not Joel Murray. It's not Brian Doyle Murray. It's like Mike Murray or something. He's the one Murray brother who's not in the industry. And
Well, the one who's on Mad Men is great.
Joel Murray.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
He's hilarious. I mean, he's in One Crazy Summer, which is a great movie.
Oh, I didn't see that movie.
It's Savage Steve Holland, Bobcat Goldthwait's in it, Boston comedian Tony V has a great cameo in it.
I
It's a
haven't
fun
seen
movie.
that.
Did you ever see Better Off Dead?
No. Oh, is that the? Yes, I did.
It's sort of the unofficial sequel to Better Off Dead. It's a similar cast. Curtis Armstrong's in it. Joe Flaherty, who's one of my favorite SCTV alum.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Tell me the name again.
One Crazy Summer, shot in Massachusetts. It's a silly, funny movie.
Oh, I want to see Tony V too.
Tony's very funny in the opening of that. So yeah, Bob Newhart, Mary Tyler Moore, shows I still frequently watch. They're funny and also have a lot of heart to them.
Yeah.
But aren't they're character shows, which is sadly unusual.
Well, that's the thing too. They also had so many great side characters on the show, which don't. When you get down to like Cloris Leachman is amazing, and
yeah, I mean, even just like Lorenzo Music. who started as a writer on that show and then became the doorman and then the voice of Garfield, and he wrote the theme song to the Bob Newhart show. You have these people who are so involved who was like, I'm
Is
ready.
he Kyle? No, what's his
Yeah. What's the doorman's name?
Hey, Rhoda?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know
This
that
is
was
the
him.
doorman. That's Lorenzo Music, who literally started as a writer writing scripts, wrote the theme music to the Bob Newhart show, did that voice, went on to voice acting work. And
Carlton, your doorman.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
It's Carlton, your doorman.
Carlton, your doorman. Just having these people behind the scenes too that are so versatile and so involved in a lot more than just the writer's room.
Well, the other thing is that I never really realized about, because when I watch TV, I watch it very organically. I don't think about camera angles.
Right.
But now recently, or maybe from going out for sitcoms, just the idea that you establish this shot of the building, it just totally works. All of a sudden, you feel like you're where Mary Tyler Moore lived.
Yeah, you're not, and you believe that it's Minnesota, and not, on a soundstage in LA.
So I just want to say, establishing shots, very good.
Very important. In fact, we should have a show just of establishing shots, which I'm surprised hasn't happened yet. What was the first 3-camera sitcom you were on? Was it Raymond?
I actually did a show called Muddling Through.
Okay.
Which Jennifer Aniston was attached to.
This is about 89, 90?
No, this is like mid-90s or something. It was the same year she took Friends.
Okay.
But that one wasn't picked. If that one had been picked up,
she wouldn't have got Friends.
She wouldn't be on Friends.
Well, she'd been on just failed pilots forever. And she was on the Ferris Bueller TV show, and she was on that sketch show The Edge with Julie Brown and Tom Kenny, and which was not fantastic, but she had just been around a long time, so it was nice that something finally hit for her.
Yeah.
When did you do TV Wheel? 94?
That seems around 90. Yeah. That was really exciting.
I loved TV Wheel. That's one of my favorite sketch shows, and it made me sad that concept.
Just one pilot,
just
right?
Just one pilot, yeah. But that was such an interesting sort of play on the formatting of the studio.
Yes, and just the fact that the whole stage would
rotate,
and then it would open up into the next area where you'd have your scene.
Very, very interesting.
It was really, and also I don't know if you remember or if it got included. He did a tour of it.
Yes, at the beginning.
Yes, which was outstanding. Joel Hodgson. Yeah,
and so that was such an interesting way to play with the sort of conventions of television that people were used to, whereas you're saying, establishing shots and stuff, it doesn't even register, but you realize when they're not there. They stick out.
They work. Certain things work. I mean, I hate to be a rules guy, but certain things work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your mind fills in the blanks.
When you were on in 3-camera sitcom that first time, did it strike you as odd, or were you, because you never really thought about the things you watched growing up, when you were there, were you like, oh, did you start to rethink things like Mary Tyler Moore or Bob Newhart?
I was actually had a misleading introduction because I had to bring a cardboard cutout of something, and I had to walk across the room and place it down just in the spot where then I wouldn't lose me and the people behind me.
Gotcha.
It was so hard
because you had to hit the exact mark.
Yeah, and I thought, oh my God, I'll never be able to do this. But most of the time, you don't have to do that, and a lot of times, I will have no idea where the cameras are.
Right,
and should have more. Should have more of an idea of because part of me is I think I'm glad about it because my mind doesn't work that way, and then sometimes I'll just do like I did some episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yes, which is on Disney Channel.
Disney Channel. And so what I had to do was appear in smoke,
which we've all had to do at some point.
So I went like that, but it was supposed to be more complicated to move, and they thought it was the funniest thing.
You went stage magician.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Yeah.
So Sunday night, 7:00. What are you going with it at the beginning of prime time?
Well, I'm only going to point to the World of Disney because it was such a depressing show. I couldn't stand it, and it meant school
was the next day. This particular edition of World of Disney is really depressing. This is a 60-minute 1958 Disney-produced show called The Pigeon That Worked a Miracle. And the plot is a crippled boy's hopes of regaining the use of his paralyzed legs ride on the wings of a racing pigeon.
Oh no.
That is...
Is it supposed to be uplifting at the end?
I imagine, no pun intended. I imagine it is, and they've clearly run it around Christmas time due to the people love the crippled at Christmas. It's a big thing. They don't get on TV till Christmas time,
That's so
and then
good.
everyone cares about them.
Oh man! And even when there was no theme, maybe when it wasn't something that depressing, I didn't even know what the show was. It just was like
It was a
you saw
mishmash.
color and
Yeah, it would be like, tonight on the Wonderful World of Disney, we're just going to have a nature program about lemurs. Or here's a show about a crippled boy.
But didn't Walt host it too?
He would, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then later Michael Eisner did in the 80s when they brought it back. Yeah, very, very sad show. But I probably would have watched that as well, given what our other choices are, because even more depressing is Cher. A family-oriented show with Captain Kangaroo, the Hudson brothers, illusionist Mark Wilson and his son Greg, and Chastity Bono. The captain brings along something called Stupid Dillio, a three-headed animal played by the Hudsons, and reenacts his attempts to sell his idea for a TV show. In another sketch, Cher and the three brothers appear as toy soldiers.
Why are they going through back?
Very detailed.
Back in those days.
You had less choice, so you're gonna watch one of these three things. Why do they need to tell us so much? Like
They're just so
someone's
excited about it.
They really are.
Is.
Let me tell you about Cher doing her medley of old standards. The variety show. Probably would have gone with Wonderful World of Disney as well, especially given that $6 Million Man.
I would, but the thing that was depressing about that because it must have started earlier. World of Disney
On the East Coast?
or no, like time wise, it was in the '60s maybe. Or,
Yeah, it started in the late 50s, I think.
and I just hated the idea that school was the next day, and this
Yeah,
was the hard.
Sunday night anxiety I still get, and I've been out of school for decades. It's just that, I'm going to go to bed and wake up and have to do it all over again tomorrow. Very depressing. So I probably would have gone with that as well. 8 o'clock, what are you going with? 9 o'clock East Coast time, I should mention. We're
Yeah,
still
yeah,
in
we'll have to
Central
keep saying that every time. I went with Kojak, which I don't think I've ever really seen.
I've only heard people called Kojak. That seems to be
as
the
a
extent of
reference?
like, all right, Kojak.
Okay, Kojak.
Nice one, Kojak.
Sounds like Dennis Miller reference before everything went
Yeah,
sour.
well, Dennis Miller calls me all the time and just calls me Kojak.
Hi, Kojak. I need
Hey,
somebody.
Kojak. These illegal aliens, Kojak. Yeah, Telly Savalas scares me.
Well, I didn't mind him as on the Players Club commercials.
Players Club.
I'm not just talking about Wednesdays and Thursdays, baby.
Did you know anyone who had a Players Club card?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think. I wonder if it was popular at some point.
I mean, there were enough ads, you would think so.
Yeah, but it could be because they were constantly pushing it.
That's true. To me, when I picture the devil, he looks like Telly Savalas. I'm just like, that's the devil.
Yeah, but he did some good movies, right, or something like that.
Yeah, he was
or-
in some good movies. He was in a really good Italian horror movie called Lisa and the Devil, where he doesn't play the devil, but that reminds me of it. But yeah, he was in some good stuff. He's a weird looking guy.
Yes,
He just looks like a genie. I think that might be it. He's a little genie-ish.
like Genie. Oh, like Dream of Genie.
Yes, he looks exactly like Barbara
Yeah, but
Eden.
didn't some ladies like him?
I think ladies liked him. Was he a pinup in the 70s? I wonder if people were like, ooh, Telly Savalas.
You mean like in Playgirl?
Or just like ladies being like, I'd hang a poster up of him. he was the pinnacle of male.
Well, he was one of the
1970s.
few guys who did the bald head, like Yul Brynner
He
kind of
did,
look.
but he had to be in like his mid-50s when he was doing Kojak, I would imagine.
Yeah. I don't even remember, was he a private detective?
I think he was a private detective. I didn't watch a lot of Kojak. In this particular episode, Kojak learns that his teenage nephew is not only a junkie, but is also implicated in the murder of a dope peddler. We've all had that day happen. It's a tough day.
yeah.
Wait, he's not only a junkie, but he murdered his dealer? I feel like that problem just solved itself. Why is that an episode?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's that could be the upside of that
It
whole.
cancels
thing.
itself out. So Monday night, 7 o'clock, what'd you go with?
I would Rhoda. I loved Rhoda, but there's a thing that on that TV guy that looks like it's called Pilots.
Yes.
And what exactly is that?
So pilots, since we're in sort of a downtime between
Yes.
seasons, television stations used to always run pilots that they didn't pick up because they had invested all this money and they needed to recoup it a little bit, which sounds crazy to people now.
Yeah,
'Cause now
yeah.
they don't even make full pilots. It's like a 10-minute demonstration and no one ever sees it.
Yeah.
But every single pilot they would burn off either between Christmas break or in the summer. And people knew they were pilots. Sometimes they'd call them like the comedy theater.
Right,
They just
right.
run these things. But this is a pilot that was not picked up. And this is a pilot called The Moose and the Pussycat, which is a trilogy. It actually says in TV Guide, a trilogy of unsold comedy pilots. The first one is called Moose, which features Scott Jacoby, William James Madden, and George O'Halloran Jr. as teenage boys growing up in Chicago in the 1950s, coping with girlfriends, parents, and sudden crushes on attractive homeroom teachers. I don't know why they didn't get picked up.
I still love the extensive, elaborate descriptions.
They are definitely much more elaborate than they later were. These are like full paragraphs. And then we have Buck Henry and Bernadette Peters co-star in The Owl and the Pussycat, the tale of a stuffy writer and a brash actress who find the opposites attract, as they always do.
In a sitcom format?
Sitcom format, Buck
Wow.
Henry and Bernadette Peters. And the third unsold pilot is Someone to Watch Over.
Oh, these are still the same.
Yes,
Within a half hour or within the
They're
hour?
airing 3 half-hour unsold pilots as sort of a made-for-TV movie slot.
Yes.
And so the third one is Someone to Watch Over Me, stars Jane Alexander and Lawrence Luckinbill as a parole officer and a lawyer who are married to each other. Crazy! And this preempts The Invisible Man.
Oh.
So someone was probably pissed that night.
Yeah, well, you can't have all... I mean, something has to go.
Preemptions used to really, really drive me insane. Because you wouldn't get a warning about it.
All of a sudden we are what were they preempted by? Sports events or
Sports events or these unsold pilots. Like, I would watch a rerun if I tuned in for Invisible Man and I'm like, the Owl and the Pussycat.
Yeah.
What the hell is this?
They're alienating their core audience.
Exactly.
In a different way.
So Rhoda is a show that I loved, although it got a little not great in the last couple seasons, I feel like.
No, but this started out pretty strong. It had what's her name? Nancy
Valerie Harper. Nancy Cartwright. Yes.
She was outstanding.
Really great show. I liked Rhoda better than Phyllis as a spin-off of
Phyllis I never even watched that much. Do I put Phyllis down for my next choice? Probably. But
Mary
no,
Tyler
it wasn't.
Moore might have had the most spin-offs I can think of any show. Either Mary Tyler Moore or Happy Days, I think, had the most spin-offs. So Phyllis is on at 7:30. Did you go with that?
I did, but I never liked it. I mean, I liked her as a character on
Mary Tyler Moore.
Right, but once I had a show in the '90s called The Pet Shop. It was 2 years old. 2 years old. It was over 2 years. I have to explain to all of your listeners that I am severely jet lagged.
He just flew in from LA.
I flew in yesterday, and it hit me hard. And it's no reflection on the podcast. It's a reflection of I think I have a brain tumor, like on the TV show Emergency.
Yes, if Emergency was real, they could have solved that for you.
They could have.
Do you have a nagging wife? She may be making that problem worse.
Hey, Ken, you're gonna get me in trouble.
That's not the 1970s
Honey, he's
anymore.
kidding.
It's not the 1970s.
But I hosted this talk show, and Cloris Leachman came out in the middle of the monologue and started. It's one of those things where you bring your pet in with her.
Okay, yeah.
So they just interrupted my monologue. My pet's. When is this going to end? So
It wasn't a setup. She legitimately did that.
Yeah. So I was very angry about that.
Wow, she seems a bit loony,
She was a bit loony,
especially at that time. That
Yeah.
was oof. Yeah, she's an older lady, a little crazy.
and she's still alive, right?
She is, yeah. She is.
She's still alive, right? That's always a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
She's still alive, right?
She's not dead yet. Is she in
Yeah.
the ground yet? What kind of pet did she have?
Poodle? I don't think it was a dog. I don't remember. It was not memorable as far as I'm concerned.
What was the weirdest pet anyone had on that show?
Well, they had Slash had a
Snake.
Had a snake, so that was weird. But you really it was a bit ridiculous format in the sense that certain animals, like you're not going to have a cat. It's not going
to sit there with it.
It's not going to play ball.
Yeah,
with you,
yeah.
Unless it's playing ball.
Right, exactly. It's a ball-playing cat. There was a guy that was a Burger King restaurant in Central Square in Cambridge, and the guy who used to ring you up had a snake around his neck.
Yeah, well, that was the
Just
thing.
a boa constrictor.
Yeah, Slash had a snake, and he said at one point, he goes, "Be careful, man. It's going to bite you." I said, "Really?" He goes, "No, I was just kidding, man."
He's known for being very funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
That is a really good joke. So 8 o'clock, what do you go?
Oh, Slash. I just so in my mind. I did Slash, and then I started to do the impression, and it sounded like Tommy Chung to me. He actually did have a good sense of humor. Slash's mother was
She was a groupie or a famous...
she was like a casting thing or something.
David Bowie used to babysit him or something like that when he was a kid.
Oh,
It was
man.
some story like
Why can't I have had that life?
We all want Slash's life. And had. So 8 o'clock, what are you going with?
All in the Family, which is probably up there with the 2 or 3 greatest shows of all time. It had everything in social commentary, but it was always based on the comedy of it.
Yes.
And the fact that he was a prejudiced guy who wasn't a bad guy.
Right, it was sort of a realistic portrayal. It wasn't black and white.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was good.
I also enjoyed All in the Family. The thing that I found weird about All in the Family, and I don't know if you ever encountered this, is sometimes when you talk to people about it, they sort of liked it wrong. Like, they would be like, and that Archie's so funny when he calls people this name, and it's like, no, it's laugh at, not laugh with.
Right. Well, the thing about it is, no question about it. And in fact, Bill Cosby had a problem with the show because he felt like it was celebrating prejudice.
Yeah, I mean, because you're making a character who's likable and a real person.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, I think it's almost just as bad to make someone be a caricature racist.
Yeah, I think that they would, what you're saying, and what he would, I don't know what his point was, but he would get mad a lot, so.
Bill Cosby's easily enraged.
Yeah.
All those people who he beat the shit out of for years.
Who did? He did?
No, just Bill Cosby beating someone up is
No,
funny.
but he's always like criticizing, like,
he hated
criticize his own people.
Yeah, he's like, Carol O'Connor, why don't you get a man's name? That was the famous
I
Bill
don't
Cosby
remember
quote.
that insult.
Yeah, famous Bill Cosby quote. But I enjoyed the show as well, and my dad loves the show because I think he likes Archie Bunker and thought he was like, he's telling it like it is.
Oh,
and
that's not good.
it was it pulled the rug out from under me because I'm like, wait a minute, people are watching this in the wrong way.
Yeah, I think that there were also some shows within which within the show, the context of the show, he did step up to the plate, but
Yeah.
not.
And what a
Not
crazy
in the
show.
telling what it is part.
Do you remember the one where Gene Stapleton got raped?
Yes, I do.
That's
it's amazing.
Crazy that they did
It really
that.
was. It was amazing, and they did such an amazing job with it. It's like you would never come out of there saying it was gratuitous or anything.
No, can you imagine a sitcom now having that as a plot line?
And she was amazing. In it.
She was really
incredible.
good.
in it.
I do remember crying quite a bit in the episode when she died and he finds her slipper.
Oh,
Devastating.
I don't think I saw that. Maybe I blocked it out.
Oh, it's like the whole episode about how upset he is and she died, and then he hasn't broken down because he's Archie Bunker, and then he finds her slipper under his chair,
and then he
it's
starts
like,
crying.
yeah, and that's like the end of the episode. It's devastating.
He is an amazing actor.
He is very, very good. In The Heat of the Night, I enjoyed him in.
Oh, I think I've seen some of that.
Very,
I haven't
very
seen it all the way through.
Very good. 8:30. What are you going with?
I'm going with Maude. Maude, my favorite story about Maude is that Janine Garofalo, the hilarious Janine Garofalo, could not get that song out of her head for like a couple
And then
years.
there's Maude.
Yeah, she would sing it. I think she actually went to therapy to learn a
To
way
get the Maude song
yeah,
out of her
she
head.
couldn't stop singing it.
It is pretty infectious. Bill Macy, who plays Maude's husband, is from Revere, Massachusetts, and has one of my favorite old men Boston accents.
He's I met him out in L.A. He's pretty nutty. In a
He's
good
still
way.
alive. He's
yeah.
in his 90s or something.
Oh, I didn't know he was out,
Yeah.
but and that's why there's a William H. Macy.
Yes, because of Bill Macy.
People, if you didn't know that, that's good trivia.
And that's like the Yankees Red Sox of acting. People are like, hey, you're in the William H. Macy or in the Bill Macy camp. You can't like both.
Oh, can't we come together over something?
No, we have to pick one or the other. So I definitely would have gone with Maude as well. I love that show. Conrad Bain, underrated on Maude.
No, definitely.
Completely underrated on Maude. Tuesday night, 8 o'clock.
Well, if you have a TV job, though, I'm gonna get another water here. Please,
yeah.
please, America, don't hold it against me.
In the Philippines, where the show is very big.
What's that?
This show. This
Oh, it goes to the Philippines.
podcast. We do get downloads in the Philippines.
That's kind of cool.
It's very weird. Yeah, I look at all the numbers and I know who downloads when and where. But it's interesting to see the foreign countries that download the show because I'm like, either you're an expat or like, why is someone in
Yes,
Croatia
how they
listening
find
about
it
old
even.
American TV?
Well, is it in the description of the show? That's what you.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
So that might how they go.
I also write all the descriptions in Croatian. Just because it's funny.
sideline.
Yeah, just a sideline. Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, what are you going with?
Oh, by the way, Maude wasn't as good as All in the Family,
No, it wasn't.
but it had some good moments in it.
It did, and B. Arthur, I always like B. Arthur. I mean, she's always funny and everything. Except they tried to remake Fawlty Towers
Oh, I didn't see that.
with B. Arthur in
It didn't work.
basically the Basil Fawlty role, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Oh, and she was also another character from All in the Family.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
that was an All in the Family spinoff. Which between All in the Family, Happy Days, and Mary Tyler Moore, they all had like 4 or 5 spinoffs.
I hope you know, my leg is. If you're at home and you're wondering what sounds like a creaking door, that's my leg.
And also, there's a ghost. There's a ghost in
Just
here
in
who keeps
general.
slamming the door, open and shut. So Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. What are you going with?
Well, I go with Happy Days only because I have no idea what it was. I couldn't understand it when I watched it. It seemed so phony to me.
But you loved American Graffiti.
Yeah, I
So-
loved it.
so-
No, is that what it's called? Yeah, right,
American
right.
Graffiti, yeah. So did you watch Happy Days being like, this is like a bullshit American Graffiti?
Was it based on that?
Not officially, but it was more or less.
I probably didn't connect the two that much, although maybe I did, but I never bought Happy Days for 1 second. It just seems so
It
boring.
really is. And there was a show that started off semi-serious, shot on film, and morphed into a 3-camera videotape sitcom that kind of stopped pretending it took place in the 50s. Really weird.
I didn't know that at all about that.
It's really strange when you watch it in reruns and they show them out of order. You'll see an early episode that's like a movie, and then a later, like early 80s episode, and it looks like a really bad play. And
Yeah,
it's the same show.
the set started to look bad.
So this particular episode, I just have to read the description because it uses a term that I very rarely hear these days, and much less so in television descriptions. Fonzie is as crushed as his beloved motorcycle, which was demolished during the night by some dastardly vandal.
Now, what's the word you don't hear?
Dastardly vandal. Doesn't come
I
up.
thought
very
you didn't hear crushed.
I very rarely hear crushed or beloved.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have gone with Happy Days. I think I would have gone with Good Times, despite the fact that the dad from Good Times was absolutely terrifying to me.
Who was the dad?
It's, why am I blanking on his name? John.
Oh, I know who he is, yeah.
Yeah. He just seems so pissed off all the time. Like he was going to murder JJ. Like,
Yeah.
just strangle him to death.
That was another show. Just didn't get the show. I mean, he was interesting. I heard him on somewhere talking about behind the scenes because it was another Norman Lear show.
Yeah, and he
So,
was fired from the show.
Who was?
The dad.
Oh,
Because
John Amos.
John Amos, that's
Yes.
it, correct. He the show basically became the JJ show.
Oh, okay.
Like most shows where a wacky side character takes over, the Urkel syndrome.
Oh, he wasn't the lead at the
It
beginning.
wasn't the lead.
Oh.
It was a pretty serious family sitcom, and John Amos was told, like, this is your show.
Oh,
basically.
he hated that.
So
whole
he
thing.
left. He left.
Man.
Yeah, Good Times, good show. Now, you grew up in New York City or
In Queens.
in
yeah.
Queens?
Yeah.
So when you saw these shows set in New York, like Good Times, did they just ring false?
Yes, it probably did. It probably did, but I probably wasn't thinking about it that much because I think when those sequels were on, I don't think I watched a lot.
So, I mean, when you were a middle-class black person in
Right.
the 70s in New York, a lot of television in the 60s and 70s was filmed in New York before everything started moving to the West Coast. Did you ever go to a taping or anything like that when you were
Never.
growing up?
Not in New York.
No interest
no.
or anything?
I have interest, but I've got a lot of issues.
At the time that was keeping you from going to see those sorts of things?
I don't know. I mean, I look back at my life and I think, okay, I could have done this, I could have done that, but I didn't have an obsession with. Now they're shooting. Well, that's where The Sopranos are. I wonder if they shoot any. They must shoot some. I think Michael J. Fox shot a sitcom.
Yeah, Spin City was shot in New York at the time, too. Yeah. So, was the Maritime more comedies the biggest comedies you were into growing up?
Well, I started early with things like The Honeymooners and Dick Van
Right.
Dyke Show, and I loved. I even loved. I don't want to say even loved, but I loved I Love Lucy for a while. It's
Right.
just very hard to watch it now. So in the mid '80s, 70s, I think when did Hill Street Blues come out?
1981.
I was very obsessed with that show.
Yeah, known for its humor.
Yeah.
Very funny show. That and St. Elsewhere.
Yes. Which they had that final episode where the guy is all a dream.
The autism, all takes place in an autistic child's mind. What doesn't these days? So 7:30. What are you going with?
7:30 on Tuesday?
Yes.
Well, I went with Dragnet because I think it's just an awful, awful show that you can't believe was on for so long.
Yeah, and this isn't a rerun either. The show was still making new episodes in 1975. This show had been on for like 14 or 15 years.
Wow.
And it's hilarious to see the 70s episodes because they got big sideburns. They're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
hippies. But Jack Webb is still sort of this, it really is like someone who's been plucked from the past and thrown into the swinging 70s.
And then the more you know about him personally, he
Not
sounds
a
like a
good guy.
creep.
Not a good guy.
And then just the fact, it just seemed like his image of what he would be like as a great cop.
Such the establishment.
Yeah.
He was like Wolfman Jack's soul.
Well, they did have these other shows, were like more like procedural shows, or
Right.
that were actually interesting shows. But this one, I never.
It was very dry. It seemed like watching Dragnet I kind of enjoy now, but when I would watch it as a kid, it felt like when a DARE officer would come to your school and tell you about drugs, like for an hour.
Right, yeah.
And it was entertaining, and you kind of left a little scared and felt like you did something wrong after. So 8 o'clock, what are you going with?
I went with MASH. Now, MASH, my favorite comment about MASH is from Scott Thompson from the Canadian.
Hall?
Yeah, Kids in the Hall. And he said that he never watched MASH because it was too green.
Too green.
Yeah.
It is very green.
I loved that show when it was out. I don't think I could watch 1 second of it now.
It's
it seems
depressing.
very, very soft.
It's sort of like you would want a more hard-hitting war drama.
Yeah, and I think one of the people who wasn't the producers decided on that the hair had to be short.
Yeah.
That was one of the conditions of coming back.
Yeah, it was weird too, though. I think at the time, if you look at MASH and McHale's Navy, Hogan's Heroes,
Yeah.
and hold them up against each other, which were almost contemporaries,
Right. Yeah.
then you really appreciate MASH a little more. But watching it now, it's a show that seemed too old for me as a kid. I couldn't really get into it, but now it's
jokey.
It's too jokey.
And they didn't want a laugh track.
No.
Larry Gelbar did not want one, and he was right not to want one because it just sounds.
It doesn't
crazy.
make sense. It's
Yeah,
very
it
weird.
Sounds crazy.
I would have gone with either The Saint. With Roger Moore, who I find hilarious and can watch in absolutely anything.
Was that an actual Bond movie?
No, it was what got him the Bond role. It was a show where he played a spy, basically. It was a very funny show. It was an hour-long U.S.-UK co-production called The Saint, which they made a terrible
I
film
remember,
movie.
and you thought it was a good show itself?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a fun show. Or
Was he a saint on it or no?
He was not an actual saint. He was a spy known as the Saint,
I
codename
see.
Saint.
Well, now the secret's out. Everyone
Exactly,
knows.
everyone knows. Or policewoman, just for Angie Dickinson reasons.
Yeah, I would watch a lot of shows. There was a show called Honey West when I was growing up.
Honey West is great.
See, you
Yeah.
know more
With
earlier
Anna.
than you. And she was so sexy.
She really is. She's great on that show with her weird serval cat and her kung fu. That was the first depiction of martial arts on television.
was
It was on Honey West, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also feminism because
Yes,
she was
absolutely. That was a great show. The DVD box set is very cheap. I highly recommend picking it up.
Because I don't remember
Holds
one
up
second
very
from
well.
it. It was
very
LA
good.
based, right?
It was LA
They were
based,
always
yeah.
driving around.
Yeah,
I love
really
all
cool,
shows that
weird
are LA
shows.
based.
I do too. I growing up here on the East Coast, I realized that I'm obsessed with Los Angeles, and it was in so many things I grew up watching. I didn't go there till I was 30. And I felt so much more comfortable there than I do in New York because I'm like, everything's familiar.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is great. I know where everything is. I will watch anything set in LA, especially old, like 60s LA.
Yeah, well, I loved when they would show was that and even in Dragnet where they would show the courthouse.
Right,
and, yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm probably going with Policewoman because Roddy McDowell guest stars in this episode as well.
Yeah.
Angie Dickinson, not a great actress.
No.
So let's move on to Wednesday night.
Well,
I'm
one thing,
sorry,
I
MASH
put
is a
one
half
day at
hour.
a time because I couldn't stand that show.
But would you watch it anyway?
No, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't understand. I didn't understand what. Well, maybe I did watch it a little bit, but it's like that. I didn't understand the whole Bonnie Franklin energy
Yeah, very weird show.
and that's with
Valerie Bertinelli.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a really bad show. It's a
Yeah.
really bad show. Did your family watch it? Were there
Yeah.
shows that they watched that you would just sit through?
My parents are elitists, like me. I mean, they're TV elitists, not
Gotcha.
like they're very much on the same page. And like my dad's, our family is not like bathroom humor.
Okay.
Or so
Yeah.
it's like
This is beneath us. Put
Yes.
60 Minutes on. That kind of thing.
yeah, but not even like that much formal the other way. They just reject a lot of TV.
That's a good thing. That's good parenting.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with them.
That's good parenting. So Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, what are you going with?
Well, I wouldn't really watch Tony Orlando. But what else done? I picked Tony Orlando and Dawn, but I would never watch it.
There's
So-
something called King Orange Jamboree Parade.
No, I'll pass on that.
That sounds like the worst jam band that your college roommate's in.
Jamboree.
I'm in King Orange Jamboree Parade. You want to come see us? Tony Orlando, what an insufferable human being. I don't know him as a person, but just looking at him, I can't stand him.
Well, you really had to dig his
That whole Tony Orlando thing.
Try and defend him. Well, you have to see that. No, there's no defense of Tony.
This episode is the New Year's Eve show. So we're actually Wednesday night, I should mention, is New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And so Tony Orlando
that shoots a hole through your other.
Suits a whole
theories.
other thing. Tony Orlando and Minnie Pearl feature sketches about 3 sanitation workers celebrating the holiday at the dump. Can you get more literal than that sketch?
Well, also, is that what you think of sanitation workers? That that's their idea of a fun night out?
Let's hang out at the dump and
Yeah.
shoot rats.
You won't believe it because we're here all the time.
Get it? We're at the dump. And Tony Randall and Don perform the tongue-twisting Sister Susie's Sewing Shirts for Soldiers.
Well, that one I would watch. I
mean,
would
that's
watch
pretty
anything
great.
with Felix on it right now.
Would you go into Times Square on New Year's Eve? Yeah,
See, that's the thing. My family, we don't like lines.
No, I don't either. If I ever commit a capital offense, or when I do,
Yeah.
I think instead of putting me in jail, if you just went, you have to sit in Times Square for New Year's Eve, I would be like, please just kill me. I can't do it.
I'm gonna see if I can arrange that because I think you're lying. I think you'll come right down off of it.
Send me to Times Square or spring break in like Myrtle Beach or Orlando, Florida, and I would rather go to jail than,
All right.
than go to those.
MTV Beach House, I could get the whole thing going.
I'd go to the MTV Beach House.
Puck would be there.
If Puck is there eating my peanut
Is he
butter.
alive?
I think he is allowed. Yeah, he is. Daisy Fuentes or Idalis, maybe they could be there. Only 90s VJs. So, yeah, what would you watch on New Year's Eve? Were you a Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year person?
I hate them all. I hated them all. Maybe when I was like 12 or 13, I would get a little excited because they would count down the ball, but now
Yeah.
it's just...
Yeah.
No.
Would you ever do anything when you were like 18? What would you do for like a New Year's Eve?
Well, we drank in the home or something like that. I also,
Drink in the home.
Drank in the home. When I was 18, and there was still, you could drink.
That was
in
drinking
New York
age, right?
State.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
You'd get hammered.
Yeah. Well,
You'd just
not
get
really. I've never been more. I mean, hypothetically, this isn't specific, but hypothetically, I probably would enjoy pot.
There you go. Well, I think if you're living in a world where your best option at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday is Tony Orlando and Don, you should partake in pot.
No,
Hypothetically.
they gotta be doing the stretch sign the whole time with them.
How could that last a whole hour?
How did it last? Did it last a year?
Hour. Yeah, it was on for more than a year. Tony Orlando shows photos of his gridiron days during a salute to the New Year's Day bowl games. Awful.
So that's the type of thing where you don't want to explain too much.
No, absolutely not. So 8 o'clock, what are you going with?
I'm gonna go for.
You get two choices. It's limited.
I would. Oh, well, Cannon's one of those shows where I have no idea. Another one. It's like Kojak, Cannon. There's another one called with James Francisco.
Oh yeah, Mannix.
No, that was with Michael. That was with. He's an Armenian guy, but he changed Mike Connors.
Oh yeah.
But that wasn't his real name.
You got Banachek.
I hate to rip the cover off of these things.
Hold on, he's Armenian?
And Cannon, I didn't know what it was, and I'm sure it wasn't good.
So this is William Conrad, who was later in Jake and the Fat Man as the Fat Man.
And was that a better show?
Jake and the Fat Man has some interesting segments, but it's I always thought it was weird that he took that role. There are certain shows where the title of the show is insulting to the actors in the show, and I always wonder, did they cast this with a different name, and then you go to watch it and you're like, it's my new show, the William Conrad Show, and then it's called Jake and the Fat Man? Like, Fox had a show called Babes that was about 3 overweight sisters, and I'm like,
boy.
This show is a sarcastic dig at the stars of the show.
And also, but people love still to make fun of obesity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's go-to.
This is my new show, The Fat Ugly Guy. Yeah, I wouldn't have gone with Cannon because I'm fascinated by the show called Skating Spectacular 75, an annual ice skating exhibition for charity. Once again, you can get away with anything if it's for charity.
Yeah.
Would have been exciting. Ice skating, not my favorite thing. I'm a roller derby person. But ice skating. You know, I'm surprised they haven't tried to combine roller derby with ice skating. That'd be exciting.
Oh, I know how you combine it, though.
You basically just do roller derby on ice.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant half of them do something.
Half of them are on ice and half of them are on roller skates. Put the roller skates on the ice.
I wasn't getting the concept down.
Because then you're getting hockey fans
to
watch ice skating.
Yeah.
I think we have $1 million idea.
I think you've got some great ideas.
We have some great ideas here. So that is Wednesday night, New Year's Eve, 1976. First day of the year. Thursday, January 1st, 1976. It's the bicentennial. What are you kicking it off with on 7 o'clock, 1976? First day.
This has to be because it's all about coming home to the Waltons.
Right.
You want to start the year right with a family unit that you can. I watched the Waltons a lot.
Really?
Yes, I watched them a lot.
Have you seen it recently? Have you revisited?
I don't think it would hold up.
So you love the Waltons.
I did, but I mean, what happened was there was a Christmas movie that was made called The Homecoming.
Yes.
And that affected me. I grew up Jewish, but I loved Christmas.
It had a sequel as well, Homecoming 2.
Oh, and I remember maybe I saw it when I was really young, and I was like, just the whole idea of there, searching for the family.
Did you love Christmas because you didn't have it? Did it seem
Well,
really sort of exotic?
Yes, it was. Yes, and there was a couple of traumatic things in my family. Like my mom was very inconsistent, so some years that she'd have a little thing, and sometimes she wouldn't. So that actually made it more traumatic.
Right.
And when I was about 9 years old, for some reason, I stumbled onto a Christmas Carol in our house.
Yeah.
And I read it because you could read it's a short story.
Yeah.
And so I just for some reason very much the. English British Christmas.
Right, with the traditional Victorian Christmas.
Oh, and I've read every version of A Christmas Carol. But I used to love also Archie comic books.
Right.
When I was a kid, because they always have Christmas.
Yeah.
And I watched
very
every
Christian Archie comics. A lot of them overtly Christian.
Well, because I'm kind of into comic books. Because my dad was friends with Harvey Kurtzman, who was the originator of
Harvey
Mad.
Kurtzman, yep.
He got in trouble for going after. He called it Starchy.
Yes,
and he
yes.
had to actually get
Super Duper Man. He got sued in the original Mad.
He got
DC.
sued. So they were, but to me, because I was just a kid, I loved Archie. And I thought it was like I wanted it to be wholesome.
Yeah.
I just did joke about how they're making it more realistic now. It's
Yeah.
like. No, I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to read Archie to find out that in Riverdale they're also having a sanitation strike.
Yes,
and
yeah.
and syringes are washing up on the beach.
It's escapism. It's sort of the America that never existed.
Yeah,
That's what you
I don't
want.
need Reggie's take on global warming.
Right, Reggie HIV positive. Archie actually Riverdale is based on Haverhill, Massachusetts. It's
Oh, I didn't know
take
that.
place in Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And the idyllic 50s Haverhill is a long gone thing. It's a very crime-ridden place now. It's actually where Rob Zombie comes from.
Oh, okay.
But Haverhill, Mass is Riverdale. The guy that
Man.
created Archie had.
That's
had
so
Riverdale.
funny. So weird.
Was your dad friends with Kurtzman when you were a kid?
My dad was friends with Harvey Kurtzman because his friend Harry Chester was like an advertising man.
Yes, yeah.
And my dad wasn't in the business at all, except he was very, very funny.
Yeah.
My dad, he's still around, but he's 88. But I remember very clearly going to the World's Fair in 1964. I'm 57. World's Fair 1964, and we just Harvey Kurtzman happened to be there
Yeah.
with his daughter, and it's like a memory that will stick with me.
Did you read Mad at that time and you knew who it was?
I did, yes. That we did know as kids that
Yeah.
he was, but then I didn't know about the whole story that it started as because like what apparently Harvey Kurtzman, he didn't like when they were doing those weird science.
The horror comics, yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
EC Comics was Super Entertaining Comics.
Yeah.
So William Gaines inherited the company from his father and was doing funny animal books in the 1940s.
Right.
And William Gaines reinvented it with Al Feldstein. They were really the two big guys that recreated it as these horror comics.
Yeah.
Which became very popular with GIs in the 40s and 50s who came back and were reading them. And so they started aiming them more at adults.
Right, but there was a time period where, and you obviously know more about it than I do, but there was a time period where even Harvey felt like they were going too crazy with the eyeballs popping
They went
out.
very far with it because they knew what sold, basically. So they really started pushing it. And so Harvey started doing Mad as an EC comic, but then they created the Comics Code, which was after the Frederick Wortham trials, which they went and testified before Congress and all this stuff. So Mad was reinvented as a magazine
Yes.
because magazines weren't subject to the scrutiny of the Comics Code because people didn't assume magazines were for children.
And the other thing was that what Harvey was more into were these war things that he was doing.
Yes,
And
yes.
those were different. So he was he thought like they brought it on, I mean, obviously he didn't agree with the censorship, but they brought it on themselves in a way, and
Yeah.
some small, I mean, that wasn't what the whole thing was about. The whole
No.
thing was a political...
Yeah, it was a way to sort of control
kids
children,
and, yeah.
and you know, it was a scapegoat for juvenile delinquents. And there's a pretty great movie called Comic Book Confidential. That's a very
Oh,
good
yeah.
documentary from
Cool.
1990 that gets into that stuff quite a bit. And William Gaines was reinvented as sort of the head of Mad Magazine later, which was funny that most kids knew him as the Mad Magazine guy,
Yeah.
and not the horrific eyeballs popping out, women being decapitated guy.
Yeah, and he really was. I mean, what happened was that Harvey had a dispute with him and lost Mad Magazine in the
Right.
dispute, and then he went and did Humbug, which was backed by Hugh Hefner.
Yes.
and
It's
so
not a hit. But everyone had a Mad ripoff. I mean, there was Plop.
yes,
You remember in
Cracked,
the most
right?
famous.
But I didn't know as a kid that it was the first issues of Mad were like so different.
Yes,
they
very,
were
very
varying in cutting edge and all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So-
oh, absolutely. They were almost like proto underground comics, and the sort of Robert Crumb and all the 60s and 70s underground psychedelic sort of head comics
Yeah.
were incredibly influenced by those first few issues of Mad.
Right.
They were sort of the biggest influence on those kinds of comics, and it's sort of surprising to people when they look back at those as
Yeah.
being that influential. Yeah, Mad Magazine is a huge influence, I think, on a lot of comedy in the 80s. People that grew up on Mad and National Lampoon and all
Right.
of that stuff, where the sort of interesting stuff for youth and teenagers was in magazines.
But it's really funny to me, like that the stuff that I liked when I was 9 or 10 ended up being terrible stuff, like the lighter side of.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
looked like, because I was fast.
Shut ups.
Yeah, was that?
Shut ups, remember those?
No.
They were like snappy answers.
Oh,
for
yeah, snappy answers to
yeah,
stupid questions.
Yeah.
Are you going to swimming? Yeah, I just have to go over this ski slope to get to the pool.
Stupid.
Yeah, stupid, yeah.
Yeah. But Matt had some great artists and some great art and really cool stuff.
Incredible artist. And then I got into what I've been into. Was more like American Splendor, Harvey Pekar,
Yeah,
and
Harvey
then
Pekar
I love
stuff.
that.
Yeah, so the autobiographical
I love
comics. Yeah, so all the 8 Ball and stuff like that.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he is the funniest.
He's hilarious.
And so Wilson
Yep.
is incredible, and Mr. Wonderful is incredible.
Yeah, it always bothers me. I'm a huge comic book guy, in case it's not evident by the last 10 minutes of me babbling. But I used to have a cable access show about comics when I was 12, and I was in the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund member and all this stuff like that. But it's crazy to me that people see comics as a genre and not a medium. So back to the 50s thing, they say it's a genre for kids. But it's a medium. It's
that
not.
makes some
it's like
sense,
saying
yes.
movies are a genre for kids. And
Right,
it goes,
right.
No, they're
It's
a
a
medium.
thing, yes.
You can tell any kind
That's
of
so
story
funny
you
that
want.
you say that because it gets associated with a third.
Exactly, yeah, and it's actually it's a specific skill. So you can be a great artist, you can be a great writer, but doing something that combines the both is a different thing.
Right.
It's a different thing, and it has different beats, and it has a different vibe to it. And to be really great at that and to do humor at that is difficult.
Yeah.
And Daniel Close stuff and those guys is great.
Who?
Daniel Klaus. Klaus.
Klaus. Yeah, I think
Klaus,
you said Daniel Hose stuff. No,
Hose and stuff.
And I do. I do watercolors and I draw, and I like that. But I mean, I don't have the discipline to do the kind of the detailed. Well, also the the talent. I'm so egomaniacal.
It's a discipline.
I could do art.
I could do it if I tried.
I could do art if I wanted to. But I really admire those guys.
Yeah.
And but I love when it's the autobiographical stuff. It's almost like what bothers me about Curb Your Enthusiasm
Right.
when it's just Richard Lewis and Larry David talking. And that's what I love about Hart. I think his is the most brilliant because it doesn't necessarily go anywhere, but
Right.
it doesn't like Louis. I think one of the downsides to me about Louis is like he'll have episodes that don't go anywhere,
Right.
but to me it's still contrived.
Right,
I'm just
right.
going to be in the Russ
It's
and
not a
Daughters.
real moment.
It's not a real moment. Whereas Harvey's like telling you a real thing that happened
Absolutely.
to him.
He's stuck in line behind an old
Yeah.
lady.
Yes.
You know, he's fixing his coat. He's going on this hunt for jazz records. It's small stories
that are all filled out and
Exactly.
just real,
Right.
and so these are the best.
And I love the American Splendor movie.
Yes.
I loved that movie.
I did. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to because I really almost wanted the whole thing to be a documentary.
Did you ever meet Harvey Pekar?
I wanted to meet him, and I have a mutual friend. I have his phone number.
Yeah.
But I was too kind of like in awe of him.
I met him once at a convention. He was very nice. I got an autograph. I always used to watch him on Letterman, and
Yes.
and I knew of him before that, and loved him on that show. Yeah, and the interesting thing too about Mad Magazine coming out of EC Comics is, you know, I won't get into the whole thing because your time is valuable, but how horror, especially the EC Comics style of horror with the O. Henry sort of twist endings, structurally is exactly the same as comedy.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the same sort of sting. It's a punchline. The little tie-up, ironic tie-up at the end of all the EC Comics. So it made sense that they were easily moved into a comedy
That makes
magazine.
sense. Yeah,
It made
that's
perfect
cool.
sense. Did you ever see the Frank Frazetta documentary, Playing with Fire?
No, is that good too?
It is one of the best comic book artist documentaries I've ever
Playing
seen.
with Fire. Okay.
Playing with Fire, or Painting with Fire. I'm sorry, Painting with Fire. He's a fascinating guy. Grew up in Brooklyn. Real tough guy. Amazing artist. Had a stroke. Retaught himself how to paint with his other hand and was just as good.
What is his name?
Frank Frazetta.
Oh, okay. I've heard his name a million times.
Yeah.
Oh, this sounds.
He grew
sounds
up with Jack Kirby.
fascinating.
Yeah, really, really fascinating
You see
documentary.
what I'm doing?
Sorry,
Oh.
we're on Thursday night.
All right.
Welcome. Speed round.
Okay, we got a speed round. So Walton's.
Thursday night, the Waltons. You're watching it at 7. What are you watching at 8?
Well, Streets of San Francisco, which I never... Is that with James Franciscus Jr.?
Yes, yes.
I never actually watched it all the way through, but I watch anything with San Francisco. I loved anything...
Really?
I think
Anything
Ironside.
West Coast? Yeah.
Anything specific... Well, L.A.
Yep.
But L.A. was more subtle level.
Right.
By the way, finally, for those of you listening, I have finally woken up. I thought I was having a had onset of narcolepsy.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
nervous. I was nervous.
Could you see my eyes go?
I saw the eyes go. I didn't want to say anything.
I almost fell down a couple of times.
It's happened to me before where I've been talking and people have fallen asleep, which was my fault. It happened to me in a speech class in college. This kid in the front row passed out while I was giving a speech.
So yeah, don't think that we sped up on purpose. Is my energy came out. Streets of San Francisco, like LA would be more. I didn't notice it was LA, but
Right.
then later I would know.
San Francisco had a very distinct vibe to it.
So I love that, and
Yeah.
but I never saw the show. I don't know if it was good.
It's an okay show. It was very 70s. It was sort of like Route 66. Carl Malden is in this episode. I remember Bruce Lee was in an episode of Streets of San Francisco. That was an episode I liked quite a bit. It's pretty much the only thing on at 8 o'clock. You have Barnaby Jones, which is a show that I absolutely hated.
No, I never. Yeah, exactly.
Buddy Ebsen bothers me. I don't know what it is about Buddy Ebsen.
He was good in The Wizard of Oz, right?
he had to quit the Wizard of Oz because he got poisoning from the Silver Flake makeup. He was the original Tin Man.
Oh, he wasn't the guy. So
Yeah.
who was the Jack Haley?
Jack Haley.
Oh, that's so
yes.
funny that I remember him
Yes.
that way.
Jack Haley from Boston, Massachusetts. One of my favorite things about the Wizard of Oz is the Boston accent of the Tin Man. Oh, my arms. Oh. Bears and tigers.
See, I never would have even thought of that. You have a good.
He has the greatest old man Boston accent. My heart. Dorothy.
It's so cool. As a kid, I just saw him as like that was his
whimsical Tin Man with his accent. Yeah, I always really had an affinity for him as a kid because he had this very warm accent that I was used to growing up.
Right. Yeah.
My favorite thing is Martin Short did a special on Showtime in the mid '80s, which is really weird and really funny, and he does sort of a mashup of this character that never existed that was in a Wizard of Oz like movie called The Man in the Moon, and he's playing an anthropomorphic fence, and he goes, "Oh, my boards will warp." And he does the Jack Haley accent, and it's so funny, and I often quote that. My wife and I are always going, "My boards will warp."
I just saw him in the airport on the way up to Montreal.
I
and
love him
I
so
love him,
much.
and he was so nice to me and so complimentary. But it was like at one point I was like, "You're the greatest." I said, "You're just the greatest." I said, "Oh my God, I'm doing you, doing me,
Yes.
doing saying something nice." And he laughed at that.
I mean, he's a guy that doesn't get credit for the just bizarre, grotesque characters that he would do. People write him off sometimes as like a punchline.
well, do you think that I never see it that way?
Younger people I've definitely seen
they're
use
wrong.
Martin Short
They're
as a
wrong.
punchline. The edgy, weird stuff he
The
did on
best,
SCTV
the best.
was the best. Just
Yeah.
some of it was really scary.
The D, the da, whatever.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Well,
Yada yada yada. Boom. Yeah, it's great. So the final night, Friday night, 7 o'clock. What are you going with?
Sanford and Son, although I love Red Fox. I don't think I watched all of them all the way through, but I would watch him in anything kind of.
Have you tried to listen to his stand-up?
Well, I know about his stand-up because I know that he has a famous bit about you don't have to wash your
You gotta
whole
wash your ass.
asshole.
Everybody gotta wash your
You don't have to wash your whole ass. You gotta wash your asshole. Yeah, I don't know. They're called Party Records.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would have liked them. Have you listened to them?
I have, yeah. I feel like those records were, the best way I could describe them is built for tittering. If I was a very dismissive upper crust person in the 50s, I would be like, oh, these titter records.
Yeah, right. Well, also the thing is, like, he was with. I don't know what I was reading, but he knew Malcolm X. And,
Yeah, they were in jail together.
Yes,
They were in jail
okay.
together, and they bonded because they were both black guys with red hair. So they were both nicknamed Red or a variation of Red, so they were cellmates.
So
And,
crazy.
What a weird mix of people. I
Yeah.
watched that buddy movie. Malcolm X and Red Fox. Why isn't that a series?
The Odd Couple.
Yeah, exactly. I would have watched that absolutely. 7:30. You have two choices. I think I know what you went with because the other one is very vague.
I don't think I wrote it down, so what do you predict it?
Chico and the Man.
Okay.
Freddie Prinze's show. The only other thing on is called To Be Announced.
Oh,
You
no. Yeah.
You would really have to hate Freddie Prinze to go with that.
Well, my friend Josh Weinstein, who is from Mystery Science
Yes,
Theater,
yes.
he does the greatest impression of the theme song. Hey ho, that's all I'm going to sing because I don't want you to have to get the rights.
I think that's pretty good, yeah, and Freddie Prinze would sue us.
I never watched that show probably that much.
I never did either.
Yeah.
And Scatman Carruthers is in this particular episode. When Chico's Auntie Connie turns up for a visit, Ed finds her and the $150,000 she just won in a lottery highly attractive. Situation we've all been in.
That writes itself.
Exactly. So the final hour.
And this
8
is a
o'clock.
good thing to close with. The final hour.
Final hour.
Is I don't want to say I'm so guilty of hyperbole, but there's nobody I love more than Garner, and that show is unbelievably
He's
great.
such a great smartass in the Rockford Files.
Oh, he's so great, and that show is really well written, and that's where David Chase wrote for that
Yes,
show.
yes.
And and another show that in the '80s when I was going through depression, I would watch that show, and that was like I wanted to be on the beach in Malibu with that trailer.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, I had the same thing. I didn't realize how much I loved LA with that stuff till I first went there.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, why didn't I move here when I was 18?
Right, because when when I first moved there, I thought it was gonna be like all beaches.
Yeah.
and that
It's
wasn't
really
true.
not.
It's not true. That's more like South.
Yeah.
And then because I think Rocker Files and Columbo. I mean, Columbo may be the best show on TV of that
Yeah,
style.
yeah.
But they're both such winners.
But Rockford Files, James Garner's just so charming. Like, you can't get a more charming character than
And
he is.
really rough and tumble.
Yeah.
That's the thing where...
He could kick your ass or charm you into not fighting him. Like, he either, like, just whatever he feels like doing.
Yeah, and he would... Oh, such a wise ass. And there's a book called Difficult Man. It's a
Yes.
really great book about The Sopranos and The Wire. And he talks about this character being an influence, kind of a precursor to The Sopranos type
Right.
of anti-hero.
Right.
Because
he's
he
still
was
a loser.
And he was
He's
a
a loser.
counterculture guy in a way.
Yeah.
And he, he's always in... Was he always in trouble with the cops still? And
he
like,
never had money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he always reminded me of the, in the Long Goodbye, the depiction of Philip Marlowe that's played by...
Another
it's
movie I
Robert
gotta
Altman.
see.
It's a Robert Altman movie called The Long Goodbye. It's Philip Marlowe, but he's played by Elliot Gould.
Wow.
And he's this loser.
How did I miss that movie?
It is my favorite Robert Altman movie, hands down. It's in LA. It's very Rockford Files-ish.
Yeah.
It's from about 72 or 73. It's a great movie.
I like Shortcuts.
Shortcuts is good. Well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
just the full frontal nudity from Julianne Moore.
Oh,
She's ironing with no pants on. That's what I remember from Shortcuts.
I think I remember that. Well, yeah, just think of his stuff like Nashville and MASH.
Yeah, MASH. Back to MASH.
Right.
But Long Goodbye is my favorite movie that he did.
I have to
hands
check
down.
that out.
So that is the end of the week, and I forgot to tell you this before, but TV Guide is not just informative. It cheers and it jeers. It has opinions. And so this week's TV Guide, this predates their cheers and jeers. But if you had a cheer and a jeer
Right.
for this week in television, what would they be?
Based on what these shows?
Based on the shows this week.
Okay, I would say Cheers goes to Rockford Files.
For just being great.
You're still doing it in year... What year was it?
So
In
year 7.
I gotta tell you, I'm looking for... What year was this again?
1976.
77 is gonna be another banner year.
Yeah.
Cheers to Dragnet, because your right-wing politics
Just
are
not doing
annoying.
it. And what a great two sides of the coin there. You have the LA of the Rockford Files standing next to the LA of Dragnet at the same time.
Right.
You can't get
And
two
what
more different depictions.
Better way to wrap up
Absolutely.
another episode of
TV Guides.
Why do I have to say that? And again, I apologize to Ken. I apologize to America. It'll be interesting to see if anyone made it through my initial part. You had to carry me.
You'd be rewarded, though, by the end.
Yes, yeah.
Your diligence will be rewarded.
Hopefully
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ken.
And there you go. That was a jet-lagged Andy Kindler talking about some fascinating things. I could talk about EC comics from the 50s and Christmas specials all day, and in fact I probably have at certain points in my life. He is very funny. You can find him at andykindler.com. Definitely check him out if he comes to your town. I highly recommend seeing him. And also, just to remind you, we will be doing a live TV Guidance Counselor podcast, the first official live TV Guidance Counselor podcast as part of New York Super Week, which is sort of an adjunct to the New York Comic-Con. So make sure you like us on Facebook because you will be the first to know. We'll see you again next week for an all-new episode.
I just realized what the name of the show was.